Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. "What were you looking for, dear?" Andrea said calmly, as if it was normal to have that item in her bag. I could not find the right words and just mumbled something. "Your key. I need to move your car." "But why is that in your handbag?" "Because," she said casually, as if my question was silly. "Because why? Why is that in your handbag?" I was starting to think clearly again. There was a long pause before she answered. She frowned, took a deep breath, and said, "Well, you wouldn't want me to be unprepared, would you?" It felt like a sudden wake-up call. I backed up a little and sat down at the kitchen table, unsure of how to react. The air felt thick, and I struggled to breathe. Andrea continued, "I always take precautions. I'm pretty sure he's responsible, but I know you wouldn't want me to bring home anything unnecessary." She said this as if it was completely normal. It felt strange that I was the one questioning why my wife had that in her handbag. What a confusing moment. I'm John L. Stewart, 33 years old, married to Andrea P. Stewart, who is the same age. We met in college and married right after graduation. I'm a mechanical engineer and Andrea is a real estate agent. We have 3 wonderful daughters and live in a nice neighborhood in Albany, New York. Our home is a 2-story house with a 3-car garage, a circular driveway, and a backyard pool. It has 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, which is more space than we need, but it was a good deal back then, so we bought it. We've lived there for about 3 years and have come to know our neighbors well. The schools are excellent, and we both have a short commute to work. Overall, life is good, though it can be challenging. I work long hours, and Andrea often does too, including evenings and weekends. We make our children a priority and try to have dinner together at least 3 times a week. Sundays are special for us to be together, doing something as a family and then sitting at the dinner table, eating, talking, laughing, and catching up on everything that's happened over the past week and what's coming next. The dinner table is, for me, one of the most important parts of the home. My parents taught me that. We gathered there to eat, talk about things, share stories, laugh, and plan for the future. That's why when Andrea and I had our serious talk, it was in the kitchen, and we eventually sat at the table. "This has nothing to do with you, John. This is something I need, and it is separate from you, me, and our family." You might have thought the person saying this was a stranger compared to the woman I had shared my life with for 11 years. A woman with whom I built a family and a home. She continued, "Don't fixate on it, John. In fact, you can forget about it because it will not affect you in any way. Our life is unchanged. Our family is unchanged. It hasn't affected you yet, and believe me, it won't in the future." I took a deep breath, realizing I hadn't been breathing. "Really? You're serious? I should just forget about it? My wife has been with someone else and I should just forget? Oh my goodness!" I exhaled. Breathing is such a hard thing to remember. "And you just told me you've been with Rob for 2 years. What on earth, Andrea?" She looked at me as if I was being unreasonable. "Sweetie, you've been really busy with work and I have too. The kids need a lot of our time right now, so I have this little thing that helps me relax," she said. She took a moment to let that sink in. If you think about it, our relationship has changed a lot, but we can't really do much about it now, unless we could somehow add more hours to the day or pause time to spend together like we used to. She paused again. "What I do isn't really a big deal to us. I know it sounds selfish, but it helps me feel better and I can still come home to you and our daughters and be a good wife and mother." I was shocked by her words. "Wait, are you saying this helps you be a better wife and mother?" I turned my head a bit to hear her better. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my wife of 11 years. Suddenly, the room felt like it was spinning, as if I was on a wild ride. I stumbled off the chair and barely caught myself. Then I lost my lunch right on the kitchen floor. After a moment, I got to my feet and headed to the bathroom to finish. On my hands and knees trying to collect myself, Andrea peeked in. "I'm really sorry, sweetie. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I thought it was better if you didn't know. What good would it do?" She watched me, then got a cool cloth and handed it to me. I wiped my face and stood up, shaky but upright. Her worried look was confusing. Where was the woman I knew? "I'll drop the girls off at school, and I'll see you after work. I'll make dinner, and then we can have a drink and talk, okay?" I was sweaty and couldn't find the words to express all the emotions swirling inside me. I heard the doors closing and her car starting. Slowly, I got up from the bathroom floor, fell onto the bed, and closed my eyes, trying to stop feeling sick. There was nothing left in my stomach, just a heavy weight in my chest. The rest of the day blurred by. I called my boss to say I was sick and couldn't come in. I had a few appointments to reschedule, but they could wait. The house was quiet, so I knew Andrea and the girls were gone. I checked the time and saw it was past 10 o'clock. I got dressed in jeans and a shirt and went back to the kitchen. My earlier mess had been cleaned up. The window was open, and the room smelled fresh again. I sat at the table staring at it, hoping for some answers about this morning. My mind was racing with questions. But more than anything, I wished I could turn back time and not find out something so upsetting in my wife's bag. Maybe she was right. Perhaps it was better that I didn't know. But now that I did, she needed to talk to me. My head started spinning again, and I had to lie down. Later that day, after trying to rest a bit, I got up and headed back to the kitchen. I poured myself a big glass of cold water, grabbed some paper and a pen, and took some medicine for my discomfort. I understood that taking notes was important for my job as an engineer. It helped to write down thoughts and ideas. But I found it hard to focus. My notes turned into messy scribbles that made no sense. Frustrated, I crumpled up the paper and tossed it aside. My mind kept going back to one big question. What had happened to my marriage? Putting the notebook away, I decided to step outside for some fresh air, hoping it would help me think clearly. I walked for almost 2 hours, feeling lightheaded from not eating. I realized that the little breakfast I had barely filled me up, and I had only been drinking water since then. I stopped at a diner and finally ate a sandwich. With some food in me, I started feeling better. During the walk home, I began to think about what I wanted to talk to Andrea about. I wanted to know why she was acting differently and what her plans for the future were. If she planned to leave, I was sure it would be without my daughters. I was determined to protect them and not let them be caught between our issues. Just because their mother was making choices I didn't understand, that didn't mean my children or I should suffer. I loved my wife, or I used to. Now I wasn't so sure. Where had things gone wrong? I wondered if I hadn't been enough for her. If I had, why was she looking for connection elsewhere? Was she planning to leave me? Did she want to take my children with her? I couldn't shake these thoughts. It was driving me crazy. I wanted to get home early to prepare a nice meal for us and have some family time with the girls and John. When the girls and I arrived, John's car was there, but he wasn't home. I assumed he might have gone for a run to think about what we had talked about earlier that morning. I tried to make a joke about it, but John didn't laugh. His response was normal, but it caught me off guard. How do you react when someone you love shares difficult feelings? I knew I could have handled the situation better, but I was thrown off balance, which led me to joke about it. When John got home, he was quiet and watched me closely, as if trying to understand what was going on. He didn't say much, just grunted or replied with a yup or nope. I wore one of my nicer outfits to show him I cared. I even put on some of his favorite perfume. I wanted to make it clear that the conversation we needed to have wasn't a threat to our relationship. After dinner, the girls did their homework while I cleaned the kitchen. Then we went outside to shoot some hoops in the driveway. John usually enjoyed this, but he stayed inside and said nothing. I was beginning to doubt my recent choices and whether they were worth the trouble they might cause. I had only been stepping outside my marriage once a week and always made sure it didn't interfere with family time. I had canceled many plans before due to work and family, always putting them first. This weekly time was supposed to address my personal needs. It was just something that happened naturally after I started working at the real estate agency. He is married and has a family about the same age as my kids. I noticed that John and I rarely had time just for ourselves. We almost had to plan our time together, which was not ideal. I understand that some might judge this situation. John is a wonderful husband and father. He works hard to support our family, and I know he believes we can manage on his income. My income is extra, and we save a lot of it. We have put a good amount toward paying off our mortgage early and fixing up our home, and our savings are also doing well. The problem is, with busy jobs and 3 active kids, we don't have time for each other. We used to share special moments almost every night, but now we are lucky if we have a meaningful moment once a week. I want more, and I think John does too. Being close to him is important. That bond is why we have 3 children, and we are still young. My Thursday treat was something I wanted to support my emotional needs. I didn't want to pressure John into something that felt rushed and incomplete. Who wants that? I decided to find a way to meet my needs while keeping my focus on my family. They come first, but I believed there was a way for me to find happiness without risking our future. So far, I was right. Now, the challenge was to protect my family while still enjoying my Thursdays. It was tricky to not make John feel threatened while allowing myself time alone. The kids were in bed, and it seemed like a good time to talk. I poured myself some wine and got John his favorite beer. My heart was racing, and I had to admit I wasn't very confident that this conversation would go as I hoped. A lot was on the line. "Sweetie, sit down. We need to talk." John gave me a puzzled look and slowly took a seat. I handed him the beer. I started. "I need you to know that you have nothing to worry about. I'm not doing anything to affect you or the kids. No matter what you think, you and they are my priority." John looked surprised. I continued, "Really, dear, you don't need to worry about this. I'm your wife and I love you very much." Then John asked, "Yes, I know you love me, but are you in love with me?" He was good with words. "Yes, dear. I am still very much in love with you. I fell in love with you from the start, and my love has grown every day, especially with our kids. I'm so happy with our life. Our children are fantastic, and you are wonderful." He looked a bit shocked and seemed to struggle to find his words. He took a small sip to clear his throat. "So, what is it that you need to explain to me?" I looked at him and said, "Well, that's a bit hard to explain, but I will try. I owe you that." I took a sip and began. "It started as a simple wish, and we all have those, even you. We've talked about some. Then it grew because life got busier with work, the girls, and everything else. We spent less time together, and I missed you so much that it hurt. I had a need that wasn't being met, and you were often busy with work and the girls' activities, and my schedule was hectic too. How many evenings and weekends have we each spent busy, making it hard for us to be close?" There was a pause, and I needed a small drink. I realized I needed something different. It might sound odd, but it was important to me. I wanted the comfort and connection that comes from being close with someone. It helps me feel calm and happy. Rob has given me some of that connection. We only meet once a week, and it's brief, just enough to help me get through the days. I can't get enough of you, so I see this as a temporary solution. John was staring blankly at the table, unsure how to reply. I continued, "Sweetheart, more than anything, I want you to take me to our special place and hold me close." I stressed the word your. In a softer voice, I said, "But I need this for myself. Just for a little while longer until our lives change and we can spend more time together. Please be patient with me and know that I'm yours, completely, and I always will be." I stood up and took John by the hand, leading him toward the bedroom. He walked silently. What happened next was private and unspoken, but it reminded me of how much I needed this time to feel like myself again. It wasn't about being disloyal. It was about finding clarity. You might think I was being unfaithful while still loving my husband, and maybe that's true. But the reality is, I do love my husband. I just need him to trust me and let me get through this phase so I can return stronger as a wife, a mother, and a complete person. I've realized my happiness is the key to becoming the best version of myself. These Thursday afternoons are my time just for now. I believe that deep down, John will understand. He loves me enough to let me have this time. Visiting my lawyer, Roy, a week later, the meeting did not go well. This whole situation started when I found an unopened package in my wife's handbag. I was looking for a spare car key, as she sometimes has both keys in her bag, so I could move her car. Her handbag was stuffed with usual items. Finding that package triggered a lot of thoughts. While I was looking at it, Andrea came into the kitchen, took the package from my hand, and put it back in her bag. "Roy, I need your help." I explained everything in detail. Roy nodded and made thoughtful sounds, jotting notes. When I finished, he said, "Well, John, that's quite an unusual story. As a divorce lawyer, I hear many sad stories, but this one is different." At $300 an hour, I wanted more help. "Roy!" "What can I do about this?" he asked. What do you want to do about it? And there it was. What should I do about my wife's connection with someone else? Then he got serious and continued. First, I advise you not to make any rash decisions. Avoid confrontation or threats. The courts don't look kindly on that in New York State, and it could create more problems. We don't want that, right? No, I certainly did not want that. Being in a difficult situation wouldn't solve any of my problems. I know that aggression isn't the answer. It might fix some issues. But what is it that I really want? I must address this. I can't let it just go on. So, Roy, what are my choices? Well, there are several things you can do, but I have to be honest with you. They all have big downsides. I was surprised to hear this from a well-known divorce lawyer. What do you mean? Roy's expression turned even more serious, which was impressive given the tough cases he usually handled. He was known to be the best in the area and didn't charge small fees, but Roy was a realist. At 34 years old, with 3 daughters and a promising career, now was not the time for me to take unnecessary risks. He started explaining my options. His quick lesson on divorce was quite discouraging. In New York State, there are 7 main reasons for divorce, he said, listing them. 1. Cruel treatment. 2. One partner leaving the other for over a year. 3. One partner being in prison for 3 or more years after marriage. 4. Adultery by one partner during the marriage. 5. Living apart under a court order for a year or more. 6. Living apart under a signed agreement for a year or more. 7. The marriage has broken down completely for at least 6 months, with one partner stating this under oath. So, what should I do? The 4th reason, about adultery, seemed like the easiest way to handle my situation. I made a note of that one, but decided to consider other options too. Living apart for a year might work, so I took note of reasons 5 and 6 as well. The 7th reason was mentioned often in divorces in this state. Roy said he had learned a lot about it. Unless I made a rash decision, like harming Rob or leaving my family for a long time, I didn't see an easy way out regarding the issue of trust. The 7th reason, called no fault, allows one partner to leave without blaming the other. But at first glance, the 4th reason still seemed like my best choice. However, Roy stopped my thoughts. My friend, the real issue here is that you have 3 children. I assume you want to be a full-time father rather than a part-time one? I looked at him confused. Of course I want to be a full-time father, that's why I'm here. Roy nodded, understanding my concern. What I mean is that with a divorce right now, you'll likely end up being a part-time father and living alone most of the time, without the money you have now, unless you earn a lot more than you do. I sat there stunned, as if I had been suddenly hit with harsh truth. I felt disoriented, not sure of my next step. It was a good thing I was sitting down. After taking a drink of water and trying to gather my thoughts, I finally looked at Roy and asked, "What are you saying?" My eyes were wide with disbelief, and I could feel the stress in my neck rising. In a calm and steady voice, he looked at me over his glasses and said, "Well, John, I need to be honest with you. You're in a tough spot." I felt my mouth drop open in disbelief, struggling to take in what he was saying. As his words sunk in, I started to understand how someone on death row might feel as they awaited their fate. It was a heavy realization. I couldn't believe my wife was putting me in this position. The room started to spin around me, and everything felt like a blur. I lost track of time completely. Suddenly, Roy was standing on one side of me, and his assistant Shirley was on the other. She held out a bottle of water to me. It felt like a small lifeline. I took the water and gulped it down, handing back the empty bottle when I was done. As I regained my breath and started to think clearly, I looked at Roy and asked about those reasons for divorce in New York. "Why shouldn't I consider number 4 on your list? My wife has been seeing another man for a while now, and she even told me about it. Shouldn't I address her actions?" Roy nodded, and his expression said a lot without words, but he eventually spoke. I didn't feel confident having him as my lawyer. How could someone defend me when their attorney is unclear about the case? No, I needed someone skilled in divorce, so I decided to stick with Roy. "John, I want to be straightforward with you. You might end up giving Andrea your house, a lot of your belongings, and even your children. You'll still have to support her financially, which means she could explore other relationships. The hardest part is that one day your kids might wake up to someone else at the breakfast table, someone acting like their father. It could change how they see you." I couldn't believe what he was saying. The thought of my children not remembering me was terrifying. I made up my mind right then that I wouldn't let that happen to my daughters. So, Roy, please tell me there's another way for this to go that doesn't mean I'll have limited time with my girls. What can I realistically do to be the father I want to be? This is all so confusing. Do you get what I mean? Roy took a deep breath. John, I understand what you want, and as your legal advisor, it's my job to help you find the best way to handle this situation, so please listen carefully. He then explained what he believed was a sensible approach for me to take, so I could tackle my problems and keep my children while staying in my home. He also reminded me of the reasons he had mentioned earlier about ending my marriage, and how those reasons would not help me get what I truly wanted. He had a different plan, one he thought could help me achieve almost all my goals while taking into account what was important to me. Roy's plan was very simple. Do nothing. Yes, do nothing. Stay married to Andrea and focus on being the best father I could be. Enjoy my family and the bond I had with my wife. Try to brush off her remarks in the kitchen and just move forward with life. Andrea had said her actions were not because of me, so why not trust that and keep working on my relationship with her? You might think Roy is not a good attorney and that I was foolish for listening to him. I felt the same way sometimes. How could I look in the mirror each morning without feeling let down for putting up with her choices? What had my marriage and my life turned into? Roy let his advice sink in before clearing his throat, taking a sip of water and continuing. I know you may think I'm not a good divorce attorney, but I can tell you from my experience that in your case, you could lose much more than you would gain. You might want to confront your wife's actions, but doing so could mean losing your children, your home, your financial future, and most importantly, your happiness. He paused again before discussing the risks of confrontations. I get that this feels very unfair, and it is, but the law decides divorce cases. Unless your wife is physically harming you or the children, the court usually favors mothers in custody matters. He went on, You may think that infidelity should matter to the court, but most times it does not. Roy looked troubled by that reality, as if he felt the weight of New York State's divorce laws. Many clients wished that such actions were considered when decisions about children and homes were made. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. This is a lot to take in, I said, glancing around the room before looking back at my attorney. So, let me get this straight, Roy. Andrea can be with other men and I won't be able to do anything about it? And if I decided to end our marriage, she would walk away with my children, our house, and I would probably have to support her financially. I wasn't sure if I was seeking clarification or just trying to understand better. Deep down, I knew I was in a tough spot. I felt like I had wasted so many years with someone who seemed to enjoy my struggles. What if I just ended everything? If I claimed I was with other women, she would probably be angry and try to kick me out. Why couldn't I consider doing the same to her? Wouldn't the court see things from my side then? Roy nodded and said, Well, John, you could definitely try that. I know others have attempted it before, but I must say that it usually doesn't work out well. Your wife, Andrea, would argue in court that your actions keep her from being with her children. She would say that her right to see them is being taken away without a good reason. So she and her lawyer would ask the court to give her custody back. In New York State, courts usually favor mothers. There are certain standards a mother must meet, but unless you have strong proof that Andrea is not a good mother, I must tell you that trying to keep her from the house and the kids will likely not succeed. Roy paused for a moment, letting that sink in. I felt overwhelmed and anxious. What was I going to do? If I left, I would lose my children, my home, and a big part of my income and future. Even if my children were in the house, Andrea could still invite friends over. Plus, I couldn't just force her to leave. All she needed to do was get a lawyer to ask a judge to let her back in the house. That would make me look bad in court. Any judge, especially one who is a mother, would likely not approve of me trying to keep Andrea away from the kids. This plan wasn't going to work at all. So, what should I do? I looked up and saw Roy talking, but I didn't catch what he was saying. Finally, he asked, John, do you understand what I'm telling you? I shook my head and said, Sorry, Roy, but I didn't hear you. He looked at me seriously and said, My advice, John, is to go home and not worry about what your wife said about things outside your marriage. If you can't forget it, I suggest you see a marriage counselor. You can try to work out an agreement that meets both your needs. If that doesn't help, I can help you create a post-nuptial agreement that lets you and Andrea stay in the house and, most importantly, be with your children. So there it was. Do nothing. If I couldn't accept doing nothing, I had to try to make an agreement that would let Andrea pursue her own interests. Because if I couldn't do one of those two things, the other option wouldn't help anyone, especially my children or me. I returned to my office, closed the door, and sat alone with a cold bottle of water. I thought about Roy's advice and tried to picture how I would handle this new situation. I took deep breaths, holding them for a few moments before letting them go. Andrea and I needed to talk again. I wasn't sure when, but it would happen, maybe more than once. Week 1. Life at home felt almost normal. Our 3 daughters were busy with school, sports, and other activities. I had no time to think about how much my relationship with Andrea had changed last week. My marriage felt different now, unlike the first 13 years. I wasn't sure if Andrea felt the change in the same way now that her feelings were out in the open. Laura, age 6, Matilda, age 8, and Diane, age 11, were unaware of the shift in the relationship between their mother and me. To them, life in our house seemed unchanged, at least for now. Andrea acted as if everything was normal and we didn't talk about our issues. She welcomed me at the door with her usual warmth, asked about my day at work, and shared what she was doing with her own work. She looked after the kids like she always did. Sometimes she cooked and handled some chores around the house. Everything felt pretty normal, as if there hadn't been any news about her spending time with another man once a week. When she got home, she seemed fine. What was going on? Had I just imagined it? Was I in denial? Week 2. Thursday nights were soccer nights for Diane. Her team practiced weekly, usually at 7 p.m. on Thursdays, followed by a game on Saturday mornings. This team was for 10 and 11-year-olds, and either Laura or Matilda would usually go with me to practices, with the whole family attending the games. After the games, we would rush to ballet for Matilda. I had gotten used to Andrea missing practices because of work, so I didn't think much about it. But this Thursday felt different. This was the time Andrea would be with Rob, someone she had known well for 2 years. They took time during the day to connect, and she would get ready before coming home to talk with the girls about soccer, school, and everything else. But now, I realized that my wife was sharing her life in ways I hadn't fully understood before. She balanced her time between her family and Rob. This thought had slowly made its way into my mind. I knew things had changed, but my feelings were trying to catch up. They were wrestling with the loving partner and parent Andrea had been, and the way she was acting now. I had never met Rob and preferred to keep it that way. I worried that if I met him, I might react poorly and create more trouble for myself, which was already hard enough. The words of my lawyer Roy echoed in my head, reminding me to stay calm. Week 3. I went to work every morning feeling anxious. I had to concentrate hard on my tasks. My boss, Ron Walton, noticed I seemed distracted. He is a kind person who acts as a mentor to me. He invited me for coffee and gently encouraged me to share what was wrong. I mostly avoided the issue, but Ron was determined to help. "John, you're not yourself lately. Whatever it is, it's starting to impact your work. You're making small mistakes that you usually don't." He paused. "Others are catching them before something serious happens, so you need to refocus." I sighed and looked at my coffee. "I'm sorry, Ron. I know I haven't been my best these last few weeks." I took a deep breath. "I'm dealing with a personal issue. I don't know how to fix it, and yes, it is affecting my work. I promise I'll try to do better." Ron looked at me with genuine concern. "John, whatever it is, it'll help if I can. If you need time off to deal with it, just say so. You're a good guy, and I want you on the team. If you need anything, just let me know." He stood up and put a hand on my shoulder. "I am serious about helping." Then he left me to think. I realized that the situation with Andrea had affected me so much that I struggled to sleep, focus at work, and manage my day-to-day life. I might not be able to change her choices, but I needed to do something for myself. I had to stay grounded and focus on what was truly important. I kept thinking about my 3 daughters. So I went back to see Roy. I asked him to start on the post-nuptial agreement that he and the marriage counselor had discussed. What did I have to lose? Week 4, it's Tuesday, and I got home around 6 o'clock. Andrea was there, and I thought that tonight would be a good time to talk to her. The kids were doing their homework at the dining room table while Andrea was in the kitchen making dinner. She cooks pretty well and tries to keep our meals healthy. Tonight she made meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green peas, which the kids really like. After we ate and cleaned up the dishes, I sent the girls outside to play soccer in the backyard. There wasn't a practice or any activities planned for tonight, and Andrea hadn't said anything about needing to work. I went outside to join the kids. The heavy feeling I had been carrying was slowly fading. I decided to take charge and figure out how to feel better about Andrea's clear statement from a month ago that she needed companionship outside our marriage, even though she always put our family first. Her dedication to me and the kids was certainly commendable. Once the kids were in bed, I went to the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of Andrea's favorite white wine, and got myself a beer. I poured both drinks and set them on the dining room table, similar to what Andrea had done a few weeks earlier when we talked about this situation. I walked to our home office, where Andrea was working on her laptop, and stood in the doorway. "Andrea, could you come to the dining room, please? We need to talk," I said. She quickly turned to look at me, and I turned to go back inside. A moment later, she came out and took a seat at the table. She looked a bit anxious, so I slid the glass of wine toward her. "You might want this." Andrea picked it up and took a small sip. "What do you want to talk about, sweetie?" she asked. I took a sip of my beer and started. "A few weeks ago, you surprised me when you told me about spending time with another man. Since then, you've said you plan to keep doing it. I have to be honest, I still can't fully accept the idea of you being involved with someone else." "You're not sharing me with anyone, John. I'm your wife and you're my husband. That's it. What I do sometimes is separate from our marriage. It's just for fun, like you playing racquetball with someone else," she replied, taking another sip. "I understand that's how you see it, but I see it differently. To me, intimacy is something that should be special between us." She opened her mouth to respond, but I raised my hand to ask her to wait. "Let me finish, please." She took another sip. "I've talked to 2 different people about this, and a big part of me wishes you had never told me about your relationship with this guy." "You mean Rob?" "Yes, him. Are there other men?" "I've never asked that. Do you have more than one boyfriend?" "No, dear. He's the only one." "Have there been other guys before him?" "No, dear." I glanced at the large gray envelope on the table that held the document Roy had prepared. I took a big drink and sighed, reminding myself to get my children's DNA tested to know if I was truly their father. Who knows? She could be lying to me. "What's in the envelope, sweetie?" "I went to see my lawyer, Roy, you know him." Right away, Andrea's face became serious, and she looked a little more worried. "I saw him and a marriage counselor. Both advised us to set up some kind of written agreement that would help our marriage. The counselor said that more couples are finding this helpful for discussing things that often go unspoken. When I first started to read about this topic, I was surprised by how detailed it was. It covered many issues we often ignore. I took another sip of my drink, unsure if a relationship agreement was what we needed. I also wasn't sure if Andrea would be open to it. But honestly, I didn't know what else to do other than avoid the situation completely. Could I really ignore her actions with someone else? I knew that ignoring it would only lead to more frustration and could make me act in ways that might harm our relationship. I had let Roy and the marriage counselor suggest that using this relationship agreement could help Andrea see how her actions were affecting our marriage. Would she think about her choices? This agreement might encourage her to rethink her relationship with me and our family. However, if she accepted it but kept going down her current path, it might have serious consequences for her later on. In the end, this relationship agreement brought new challenges to our relationship that I hadn't expected. For Andrea, it allowed her to spend time with her boyfriend Rob regularly, but she had to be honest with me about what she was doing. I needed to promise not to overreact or interfere. On the other hand, I could do the same if I wanted. There were consequences for what we both did, and this was one of them. So, I asked the marriage counselor to draft this document, and then I asked Roy to check it to ensure it was fair to both of us. Andrea looked at me, then at the envelope, and took a sip of her drink. She seemed surprised. I continued, Since you mentioned that you need more than I can provide, I was worried about our family situation. I want to make sure, above all, that our girls are the priority in any decisions we make as individuals and as a couple. They deserve that, and they are my first focus, no matter what happens between us. Andrea took another sip and said, "John, you're scaring me a bit. Is this your way of saying you want to separate?" "Oh no, just the opposite, dear. I want us to stay married. I love you very much and want to keep our love strong. I just want to ensure that the girls are safe, no matter what we decide." I paused, not for drama, but to take a moment. I needed a drink to keep going. "I know that things have changed for you, but if you're okay with it, I want this agreement to give us some guidelines so that our girls have both a mother and father, and they see us being just that. I want them to grow up in a stable family." Andrea's expression brightened. "I was worried you were saying you wanted a divorce. You know I love you, and you and the girls are always my top priority." I thought about the challenges in her situation, but I looked her in the eyes and said, "Thank you." After a brief pause, I pointed to the envelope. "So, this is a draft relationship agreement. I want you to read it and tell me if it seems reasonable. Everything here can be changed. We just need to agree on what it is." Andrea frowned slightly. "Do you really think we need a written agreement to manage our marriage? We've done fine for the last 11 years, and with 3 kids without one." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Since you told me about Rob and your plans to keep seeing him a month ago, I thought it was best to set some rules. If you want to keep our bond strong and if you want me to support it, I think we need to focus on what gives us stability in our marriage. I can't just sit here and not share my worries about us and our future as a couple and a family. I want to protect what we have." I didn't realize that John felt so uneasy about my time with Rob. It wasn't meant to be a threat to him. Rob was just a distraction, something fun for me that didn't involve our relationship. I wish John wouldn't think about it at all. I'm his wife and I love him. That should be what matters. But now, things seem to be getting out of hand. John has been more distant lately. I thought after a while, everything would go back to normal. But I see that we haven't been close for the last month. I noticed that he hadn't really touched me unless we were around the kids, and even then, only a little. Oh no, it dawned on me that we haven't been close at all for a month. What does this mean? Is he pulling away from me? Is he backing off from our marriage? Is this leading to something worse? I need to do something quickly, before things get further out of control. What is this relationship agreement he wants me to look at? John said, "Andrea, I want you to read this over and then we should talk. I want us to agree to everything before we decide to follow this agreement. What do you think?" I replied, "I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I love you and our daughters." I looked at him. "You know I never thought I needed a piece of paper to show my love for you. But when you brought another man into our lives, that changed things." I paused for a moment and took a sip of my drink. "I need to know a few things, including your long-term plans. Are you planning to move on? This connection with Rob is very confusing to me. Part of me wonders if you think I'm not good enough for you anymore." "Oh, John, no, that's not it at all. We've talked about this before. Rob is just someone I occasionally spend time with, a brief distraction that helps me deal with our daily challenges as a couple and as a family. That's why I choose afternoons for these outings. I take care of that need and then return home to my real life and family. I've never wanted a different life than the one I have with you and the girls. In fact, I've even thought about adding to our family. That caught me by surprise." "What? You want more children?" "I think it's a possibility. We should talk about it more, but what's wrong with wanting to make our family bigger? You and I both love kids. Our daughters are the center of our lives. Have you ever thought about having a son?" I was surprised by her idea of a 4th child. Balancing another baby would be difficult, considering how busy she is with her job and our 3 children. How could she handle a pregnancy? Was she hinting that she might be expecting? I was filled with questions. "When would you want to have this baby?" "We could start any time. Honestly, now wouldn't be too soon. Let's go." Andrea set down her glass, took my hand, and led me towards our bedroom. The evening was filled with a sense of closeness and connection that we both cherished. We shared a meaningful experience that felt refreshing, leaving us both tired but happy. The next day at breakfast, I suggested to Andrea that she take the envelope with the relationship agreement and read it over. I wanted to make sure we both understood our agreement before she continued with her plans for Thursday. It was important to recognize that having an open marriage could come with some challenges. Relationship agreement. This is the relationship agreement between Andrea Stewart and John Stewart. It starts when we both sign and sets the ground for our marriage. It explains our relationship and, most importantly, the rules we agree to follow for the good of our marriage, especially for our 3 children. We both understand and agree that the well-being of our children is the most important thing in our marriage. Andrea and I agree that any violation of this agreement will not mean the end of our marriage, but will show the need to revisit the agreement and possibly make changes to improve our behaviors or come to a mutual understanding. The agreements are not in any particular order of importance and do not cover everything that makes a relationship or a marriage, but are meant to highlight key points. We agree never to threaten our relationship in passing or during disagreements, especially in front of our children or families. Serious disagreements will be talked about privately. We agree to take responsibility for our feelings and well-being. We will make time for ourselves, whether alone, with friends, or on separate vacations if we both agree. We commit to a weekly date night without distractions like phones. We agree to focus on personal growth, being patient with ourselves and each other without expecting change to happen on a set schedule. We recognize the need to be supportive of our career goals. We agree to prioritize our health and well-being so we can both bring our best selves to the relationship, including addressing any health concerns. While we are in other relationships, we will get regular health checks and share the results with each other promptly. We recognize that we do not make each other happy. Instead, we bring our individual happiness to share with one another. We promise to be honest with each other, even when it is hard. We agree that our partner has our best interests at heart. We will respect the 3 parts of our partnership: you, me, and any other relationship. We will have 1 day together each week with our phones off, so we can be truly present with each other, separate from our regular time together. We will connect at least once every 2 weeks. We will welcome and respect any emotions that come up and try not to take them personally. We will work to ease disagreements with gentle reminders when things feel tense. We will honor emotional breakthroughs and every tear that may be shed in the process, processing them safely in our relationship. We agree to keep any gifts for birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays under $200. We promise to do our best to follow this agreement and to be patient and understanding with ourselves and each other if we make mistakes. This agreement shows our commitment to each other. It does not cover everything and can be changed through conversation and agreement by both Andrea and John. This relationship agreement is not meant to limit how we care for each other. Our signatures below show our commitment. John Stewart, Andrea Stewart. Week 5. Andrea, this relationship agreement feels unnecessary. I don't understand why John listened to the lawyer and the marriage counselor. They didn't know me. I met the counselor once, and her ideas didn't reflect who we are. I didn't need any document to guide my marriage to John. John is mine, and I am his. It's that simple. We have children, and we are a family. That's clear. We're staying together. That's what matters. This weekend, I'll talk with John about this. I won't follow a written agreement that tells me what I can and can't do. Week 6. John and Andrea strongly opposed the relationship agreement on Sunday and wouldn't sign it. We talked about it, and I asked her what changes she thought were needed. I wanted this to remind us of our responsibilities in our marriage. If we were going to include others in our lives in a meaningful way, we needed to be clear about what was okay and what wasn't. Andrea finally understood. She realized that exploring connections outside our marriage should work both ways. If she could do it, so could I. Week 10. John, work, and life are becoming overwhelming. I have little time for myself. I need to go for a run and relieve some stress. My tension is building and I need to manage it. Home life has been calm, to say the least. My effort to get Andrea to agree to a relationship agreement started slowly, but after some discussion, she reluctantly accepted it. It was much simpler than the original document Roy had prepared for me. The agreement said we would allow each other to pursue relationships outside of our marriage, as long as they didn't interfere with our family. There was to be no emotional involvement. If that happened, it would mean a serious change in our marriage. I quietly returned to Roy and informed him of the new agreement, asking him to prepare a plan for custody of the girls if our marriage fell apart. He is working on that now. Week 12. Andrea. I am still having my Thursday reflection sessions, and I plan to continue for a while. John and I are starting to reconnect emotionally after a tough time apart. I really need my husband more than he knows. He thinks I don't love him, but I do. He loves me, and that's why he has met with a lawyer and a marriage counselor and created that agreement. I guess he could have tried to push me away, but he knows it would only hurt the girls and create more problems. I don't have to worry about that. What I need to focus on is making sure my husband knows how much I love him. John is wonderful. He's a great husband and a great father. What more do I need? Here's the rewritten text using simpler and clearer language while removing inappropriate content. My activities on Thursdays are helping to make our relationship stronger, so things are going well in my life. This weekend, I want to remind my husband of the bond we share, letting him know we are committed to each other. He will surely feel the connection we have after spending time together. A while back, I realized I needed some time for myself away from my family. I used to run a lot in college and afterward, but life got busy. So I decided to try kayaking and biking. I found some local clubs that had meetups and lists of lakes, rivers, and trails. I bought a mountain bike and a 13-foot kayak, which is easy to handle. I took 2 evenings of kayaking lessons to get started and began riding my bike early in the mornings and on weekends. Last Sunday, we had planned a family hike and picnic, but just before we left, Andrea got a call that made her cancel. The girls and I went without her. We drove in my older Subaru Outback, and I let Diane sit in the front seat. She is old enough now and very responsible. We hiked for about 3 hours to reach a beautiful lookout. I brought my Nikon camera, and the girls took turns taking pictures. We had a lovely lunch and then hiked back down. It rained a bit on the way down, but we all had rain jackets, so it was fine. We got home after 7 o'clock, and Andrea was waiting for us. She had changed into jeans and had started making dinner. We enjoyed a nice family meal, and the girls proudly showed off their photos on an old laptop we use for that. After a day of fresh air and exercise, the girls were tired, so they didn't argue much about checking homework, washing up, and getting ready for bed. They were all asleep soon after 9 o'clock. Andrea tidied the house for Monday morning and then looked at me with a warm smile. "I need your help with something in the bathroom in a minute," she said sweetly. "I'll be there shortly," I replied. A couple of minutes later, I went to our bedroom and peeked into the bathroom, but I didn't see Andrea. She was in the shower and motioned for me to come closer. She looked lovely, and I felt a wave of different feelings. I realized I wanted to remind her of how strong our bond is. I focused on this feeling through my workouts and wanted to connect with her more. As the night went on, I was filled with thoughts of her. We ended the evening feeling warm and connected. The next morning, I woke up feeling happy, remembering our special moments together. We shared a closeness that brought joy, which reminded me of the love that brought us together. After showering, we went to bed. Around 4 in the morning, I woke to use the bathroom and quietly returned to bed beside Andrea, who was sleeping soundly. This version conveys the original story while using simpler language and removing any inappropriate content. I gently lay next to her, feeling a warm sense of closeness and appreciation for this calm moment. As the early hours passed, we held each other, and I dozed off with my arm around her. Monday came quickly, bringing the usual rush and responsibilities at work. I started the day busy, focusing on my many projects. That's how we earn money in this business. I thought about calling or texting Andrea a couple of times, but I didn't. I got caught up in other tasks as time went on. Week 17. Andrea last week was a strong time with John. He was more confident than I've ever seen him. Normally, he's very caring and makes sure our time together feels special. I feel loved with him. I am the focus of his world. When we're together, it is calm and gentle. We take our time, and in the end, we know we love each other. He is my everything, along with our 3 daughters. This past Thursday, I found myself comparing John to Rob. Rob is a bit taller, but our connection is not better. I don't spend time with Rob because of love. I do it because he has a strong presence, which I appreciate to some degree. I like the energy he brings. He wants to be in control, and I let him think he is. However, I find it easy to guide him to get what I want. My relationship with my husband is different. We are a team. I don't take charge from him. We share the load. We both have strengths, so we divide family responsibilities to handle everything smoothly. We are not perfect, but we focus on the important tasks first and then plan for good times. Sometimes, life's realities get in the way, leaving us less time for fun. By the day's end, we are usually tired and often find comfort just being close to each other. While I cherish this bond with John, I sometimes look for balance in other ways when I'm low on energy. This helps me feel whole and I come home with a smile, ready to greet my husband and children. Thursdays lift my spirits, giving me a boost for the week ahead. Then it's back to family, work, and everything else that requires attention. I look forward to the weekend when John and I can treasure our moments together. The girls are our focus most weekends, but after they go to bed, it's time for John and me to relax. Just thinking about him makes me excited. Week 22. John, my bike group, is planning a weekend ride starting about an hour outside the city, including a series of trails and roads in the countryside. I'm set to go and have signed up. They're having dinner Saturday night along with a big meet and greet afterward. Most will probably enjoy a drink or two. I've been trying to avoid alcohol lately to cut down on calories and keep my emotions steady. When I feel angry or upset, alcohol doesn't help, so it's best to stay away and keep my mind clear. Overall, my fitness has improved a lot. I still run almost every day, and adding biking has really built up my leg strength. I've noticed my pants fit tighter, so I bought a couple of new pairs that fit my more active shape. About 100 people signed up for the weekend ride, so it should be a fun time. Andrea John is spending more time out riding his mountain bike and kayaking. He gets up at 5 a.m., runs for over an hour, then showers and gets ready for work. His breakfast includes some fruit, yogurt, and a cup of coffee. I walk the kids to the bus stop and then go to work. John usually gets home before the kids, or they go to our neighbor's house. We have an agreement with them so the kids can stay for about an hour until John or I arrive home. This weekend, John is going on a group bike ride out of town. He said he would leave on Friday and be back around 7 on Sunday. A new bike arrived here on Wednesday. The bike shop dropped it off. I was there when the delivery person brought it to the door. It's red, and that's about all I know about bikes. When John got home, he set his stuff down, changed into his riding clothes, and took it for a ride right away. An hour later, he returned with a big smile, excited about how great the bike was. John said he had a fantastic time that weekend. His new Trek Marlin 6 bike was wonderful. The speed was fast and the path was tough. He felt tired and cramped a few times when he pushed himself hard. He slipped on a turn, but luckily, he and the bike only had a few small scratches. On Sunday morning, he had a flat tire. The support truck was nearby, and he got it fixed quickly so he could continue the ride. Saturday dinner was a buffet at the hotel where everyone stayed, followed by a bonfire. He enjoyed a drink while catching up with friends from their weekly rides and sharing stories. He met Jane and her sister Judy. They are both in their early 30s and great riders. Judy lives with her boyfriend, who works for a company that makes skateboards. She shared that the skateboards are made in China, painted in a warehouse in the U.S., and then shipped to stores and sold online. Jane mentioned that her sister's boyfriend can sometimes be unreliable, and Judy looked a bit disapproving. Judy is an elementary school teacher, while Jane is a new lawyer at a city firm. She is currently single after her marriage ended 2 years ago, feeling that it was not the right choice, and the divorce helped her move on. I really enjoyed the weekend, especially the time spent with Jane and Judy. As autumn is starting, the nights are getting cooler. The kids are back in school, and my work is getting busy with new projects. I found out that the law firm my company uses is the same one where Jane works. Her full name is Jane Francis, and I learned she's in a rotation focusing on contract law. I saw her at a meeting in the building where my office is. She noticed me passing by the conference room and waved. At first, I didn't recognize her. She looked so different in a light brown suit, her hair styled up compared to her usual biking clothes. She had some light makeup on, and I couldn't help but admire how nice she looked. I quickly wrote a note. "If you have time, I'm on the 4th floor. Just ask for me, and I can buy you lunch from the coffee shop downstairs." I put my office phone number on it, too. Quietly, I opened the conference room door, walked in, and placed the note in front of Jane. She glanced back at me, and I left without interrupting their meeting. About an hour later, I heard a knock on my open door, and she was standing there. "So I heard from someone reliable," she said with a grin, waving a note in her hand, "that there's a place nearby where a girl can grab a good sandwich and a drink." I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and smiled. The tuna sandwich is amazing, but if you're not into tuna, the egg salad is just as good. As we walked to the deli, I complimented Jane. She looked different from how she usually did in her biking clothes. The skirt she wore was simple and neat. Lunch was easy and casual, just two biking friends chatting over food. A few co-workers of mine came in, and I noticed them glancing our way, probably wondering what was going on. I knew they'd be let down. It wasn't anything exciting. Week 27. The biking club held its final event of the year, a 100-mile ride in a single day. Most of it was on rough dirt roads with about 15 miles off-road. That meant one thing for sure, lots of mud. By the end, both riders and bikes were covered in it. I wiped out 4 times, so I was scraped up a bit, but it wasn't serious. Mud does a funny job of cleaning wounds anyway. My bike held up well, no flat tires or major problems. I made a mental note to look into getting a lighter, better bike next year. But they can cost as much as a car, so I wasn't ready to go that far just yet. At the finish line, there were crews spraying off the bikes and riders with water hoses. I managed to get most of the dirt off. Jane crossed the line not long after me. We swapped stories about the ride. She had a few tumbles, too, and some scrapes to show for it. Her sister Judy had finished earlier and was already celebrating a spot in the top 20. It was cold, so we were all wrapped in foil blankets to stay warm. Some racers had brought RVs, knowing the mess this event would bring. It made it easier to clean up before driving home. Jane smiled and tugged my hand toward one of the larger RVs. "Did you bring a change of clothes?" she asked. Yeah," I replied, glancing toward my car. "Then go get your stuff." I walked over, packed up my bike, and grabbed my bag. I didn't bother locking the bike. It was one of the cheaper ones here, and no one would bother taking it. Over time, I'd noticed just how much some cyclists invested in their gear. Some of them put more into their bikes than into anything else. When I got back, Jane and a couple of riders around our age invited us to wash up inside their RV. They said the water tank was still pretty full. It was warm inside. We took off our muddy shoes and socks. It felt cozy. Jane headed toward the back of the RV and opened the bathroom door. While I was pulling out clean clothes, she called, "Come here, John." I looked up. She gave me a light-hearted look, encouraging me to get moving. "Let's wash up quick. We'll save water that way." She smiled, then turned on the shower to adjust the temperature. I hesitated for a moment, then followed. We stepped into the small shower space, trying not to bump into each other too much. It was a tight fit, but we managed. The water ran down, warm and steady, as we quietly shared a few laughs about the ride. The moment felt simple, not rushed, just two tired friends cleaning off the mud and dust of a long day. Jane leaned against the back of the shower, and I was touching the opposite wall. I could feel the hot and cold knobs pressing into my back, but it didn't matter at that moment. Jane rested her chin on my shoulder and whispered some kind words. I kept our rhythm until I realized I was close to my limit. Suddenly, I heard some knocking on the RV door. "Hey, you two, don't use all the water. Others want to get cleaned up too." I shouted back, "Be right out." We turned on the water for a few more seconds to rinse off, then stepped out of the shower and dried off. After putting on clean clothes, we quickly packed our things and stepped outside, where we noticed the couple that owned the RV giving us knowing looks. The man gave me a look that mixed friendship and surprise. He finally said, "Hope you enjoyed the shower?" I nodded and replied, "Thank you very much." It was announced that there would be a casual gathering for food at a nearby pub, and anyone who could join was welcome. I looked at Jane, and she said, "We'll be there." After making sure my gear was safely packed, I got into my car thinking, what just happened? I took a deep breath and realized I had shared a special moment with Jane, one of the few women who truly captivated me. I thought of Andrea, but at that moment Jane occupied my mind. I wondered if Andrea thought of me the same way when she was with her boyfriend. I wasn't sure, but I did realize my life was about to change. I drove to the pub and entered. The place was filling up with people sharing stories of their rides that day. Tales of falls brought lots of laughs, as people showed off various scrapes. I remembered my cell phone was off, so I turned it on to message Andrea, letting her know I was stopping to eat before heading home. I would probably be late getting back to put the kids to bed, so not to wait for me. She replied with an okay and asked how I did in the race. I told her I finished and sent a picture of the scrape on my leg. She sent back a sad face emoji and said, "Drive safely." After a meal and 2 drinks, I decided it was time to leave. Jane was nearby and realized her friend had left her. She asked if I could give her a ride home. During the drive, Jane wanted to know more about Andrea. I wasn't sure where the questions were going, but I figured I had little to lose by sharing my life. I talked about my 3 daughters, the most important part of my life, and mentioned that I had realized last year that I needed to do things for myself. That's why I started biking and kayaking to get out, get active, and challenge myself. I tried to avoid discussing Andrea too much. I didn't want to get personal. When I pulled into Jane's condo driveway, I got out and grabbed her bike from the rack. She took her bag from the back seat and looked at me, asking, "Would you like to come in?" I sensed that accepting the invitation would lead to something significant. In that moment, I wanted to go in more than anything. After what felt like a long pause, but was only a few seconds, I nodded yes. Without looking back, she pointed to a spot and said to park over there. Week 34. Andrea I've continued my Thursday activities. I truly enjoy the couple of hours I spend with Rob. I try my best to not let my happiness during our time together affect the rest of my life. I want to be a good mother and a good wife. I love my children and my husband. He works hard to make sure our family is taken care of. Lately, I've noticed that John seems a bit different. It's not obvious, but it's there. A month ago, I realized it when I started checking my feelings after spending time with Rob to make sure I felt okay. John is usually very serious and focused on his goals, rarely getting distracted. It's hard to get him to relax and have fun. He can be playful, but only in ways he thinks are right. My girls often try to make him laugh with silly jokes, and while he does laugh, they know he is serious most of the time. Recently, though, John has been smiling more, joking with the kids, and even trying to play small tricks on them. The girls love this new side of him. What could be causing this change? John spent most of the summer and fall biking and kayaking, but now that the weather has changed, he can't do those things. He still runs every morning for an hour. Could that be making him happier? I feel like we haven't been as close lately. What's going on? I suddenly realized that he might have found someone else who is filling a gap he feels in our relationship. Week 36. John, one afternoon, I had some free time and planned to meet Jane at a diner near my office. We often go there for a quick meal before heading to her place. It's the best part of my day. I understand now why Andrea enjoys her weekly visits with her boyfriend. I feel happy coming home, too. We're both getting what we want. I do wonder how long this will last. Jane may want more than just a casual friendship eventually, and I wouldn't blame her. She is beautiful, fit, and really impressive. Have I messed things up so much that I'm just going through the motions with Andrea? Maybe I need the connection that only Jane provides. I need to figure things out before it's too late. Week 43. Jane, I really value the time I spend with John. He makes me feel special and valued. He balances affection and closeness perfectly, which I appreciate. I enjoy being around him and how he makes me feel good. Our moments together are fulfilling, and I feel happy with him. We only have a couple of hours before returning to our daily responsibilities. I understand he has a family, and I respect that he needs to take care of them. I try to keep my expectations in check, reminding myself that our relationship is just meant to be casual. Still, I wonder how long we can keep things like this. Week 48. Andrea, Christmas was a busy time. We focused on all the things the kids love about the holiday, spending time together as a family and doing the activities that define us. We enjoyed a lot of food, laughter, and winter fun, including skating and skiing. We watched many movies and had relaxing days. Both John and I took some time off from work. I made an effort to reconnect with John. There had been some distance between us since spring when I shared that I met with Rob weekly. I tried to hold John's hand whenever I could. He would clasp my hand for a moment and then gently let it go. I told him I needed to talk about our relationship. 2 nights later, after the girls were in bed, John surprised me with a glass of wine and a beer for himself. He rarely drank in the last few months. "Andrea, I have a question," he said, looking serious. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me." "Rob isn't my boyfriend, really. He's just someone who helps me with something I need," I replied. John took a sip of his drink and then asked, "What have I done wrong? What does he give you that I don't? Why do you need someone else?" His questions were tough. He looked me in the eyes and asked, "What is this need that I can't meet?" I hesitated. It just slowly came up. I felt a need for more connection with you during the day, while we were at work, and couldn't talk. I looked away, trying to find the right words to say that my actions were not about him or his worth. When I came home with family duties and everything else, by the time we settled down, one of us was always busy. I felt overwhelmed and wanted to be closer to you, but it always seemed like the wrong time. I took a sip of my wine and noticed John's pained expression. He took a small drink and said, "Even if you say it's not my fault, it feels like it is." "No, dear, you haven't let me down at all. You're a great husband." "Then why do I feel otherwise? Why do you think you need to connect with him to feel happy?" I knew I was digging myself a hole. When I started seeing Rob, I kept that part of my life separate from my family. Rob understood this was casual and that we were both careful to protect ourselves and my husband. Our time together lasted about 2 hours each week, but during those 2 hours I felt a sense of peace that helped me be better at home. However, I realized my carefully built life was starting to fall apart at that moment. Then John said, "I don't own you. I can't control your choices. Just remember that your decisions can affect all of us. I can't force you to end your meetings with him. I just want you to know that he'll do what I need to deal with this. I don't want a divorce or for us to live like just housemates. I want my partner back." He took another sip of his drink. "I want all of you, but I'm willing to take what I can get. If you plan to continue your Thursday meetings with him, I will have to find a way to accept it." I felt a mix of relief and worry. What John didn't tell me was that he had a plan too, one that could change everything for us. John reflected on our tough conversation about our marriage. He wanted to understand her feelings and why she sought companionship elsewhere. What had he missed as her husband? Was he really that unaware? Probably. He also wanted to stress that there were consequences to her choices. But at the same time, I didn't want to make threats to my wife. Divorce or separation would seem like final decisions, and I didn't want to approach it that way. I wanted Andrea to think about her choices because she truly wanted to. I couldn't force her to change. It had to come from her heart. I thought about the agreement we had in our relationship. I was almost ready to say that I, too, was looking for something I felt was missing. I had decided that I wanted more as well. I enjoyed having a friendship with another woman who accepted me. I wasn't sure how long it would last, but for now, I was happy to know Jane beyond just a biking friend. She had become someone I could connect with, even if it was just for a few hours a week. I saw that as something positive for me. If it worked for Andrea, I hoped it could work for me, too. It's been a year since I had a big realization. That's what I call it. A year since my marriage changed. Not everything got better, but it did change. The change wasn't all because of me. Some of it came from Andrea, and later, some from me. Andrea had opened up about her own relationship, but I hadn't said anything about mine. I guess there was a sense of payback in that. I felt sad that she sought friendship outside our marriage. It suggested that I wasn't enough to keep her happy. She claimed it had nothing to do with me, but I think it did. She might be trying to protect my feelings, but she was also avoiding the truth. After a few months and with advice from others, I realized I needed to make some changes in my own life, separate from Andrea and the kids. I started doing things just for me. I still had my family responsibilities. That didn't change. But I made sure to take time for what made me feel good. I bought a mountain bike and joined a biking club. I got a kayak and began taking lessons. I started running more. I lost some weight and gained strength in my legs and arms. I even thought about trying boxing to deal with my stress, but decided to focus on running and biking first. It worked. I also met someone who shared my passion for biking, and we connected well. We see each other at biking events almost every week when the weather is nice and have lunch together another day. Spending time with her has helped me deal with Andrea in ways I can't quite explain. While Andrea believes her time with her partner makes her a better wife, my time with Jane helps me feel like a better person. I'm still not sure if it makes me a better husband, but I see it as a balance. What helps one can help the other too. Hi there. I want to share that a year ago, I never thought I would be involved with a married man. I mean, only very confused people get into relationships with married folks. Those who want trouble. We all hear stories of people who have affairs with married partners and then get hurt when things go wrong. Really, why would anyone with good judgment think that would end well? Sometimes it does, but that's rare. So the best advice for single people is to avoid married partners. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes someone slips through your defenses, and before you know it, you're in a relationship. You wonder how that happened. But then you get involved. You set boundaries for yourself. You try to think like an adult and remind yourself to stay focused on the relationship. Friends with benefits is a common idea now. But after a while, as you grow closer, you start using sweet names for him like sweetheart and babe. You open up more about your feelings. You begin to think about the future and imagine possibilities. Sometimes you might get lost in your thoughts. But then you remember that you are the other woman, someone who doesn't have the security of a committed relationship. Yet, you also think back to why you got involved with him. Perhaps his partner is looking for love elsewhere, making you wonder who is being honest. Is she aware of the risks she's taking? Is she ready to move on? For him, marriage might not be what she hoped for. The life she dreamed of may not be happening, and she might feel overwhelmed by family and work. Where is the joy? Where is the excitement she once had before her life became full of responsibilities? Is this what she wanted? Some people dream of that life. They want the simple joy of family, the comfort of knowing there will be children who rely on them for support and happiness. You're the parent, the guide, the example. You are the foundation of the family, the leader, the one the children will look to throughout their lives. What could be better? I want that. I am young, healthy, smart, and talented. I have plenty of energy and a good understanding of what is right and wrong. I strive for loyalty and value security. I enjoy the idea of stability in my life. I want to come home to a house filled with people who count on me, but I also want to teach them to stand on their own. My parents taught me that lesson well. Lately, though, I have been feeling a strong wish for the closeness of my own family. I want a child. I feel it is time. Week 60. John biking season has finally arrived. I can't wait to get out there, work hard, sweat, get dirty, and have fun. Andrea and I are still together. Her job in real estate keeps her very busy, and she often talks about how much she enjoys it. She's out with clients at all hours. I have taken on more with the kids and spend evenings and weekends with them. We are busy with their sports and activities, and my car seems to be running until late at night. When the girls are in bed, I catch up on work, clean the house, load the dishwasher, take a shower, and then go to bed. Andrea and I are spending less time together. I suspect she is still seeing her Thursday friend. I can't really do anything. If I confront her, my daughters would suffer the most. They rarely see their mother as it is. Would anything change? Even if I wanted a divorce, she would still be working all the time, and I would be the main caregiver. Jane and I are still seeing each other. She's a wonderful person. What should I do? That thought keeps playing in my head. I need to look at this from a different angle. Week 63. John, my boss, talked to me about a new project for the company that he wants me to work on. It will involve some travel for a few days every other week for the next few months. I went home and told Andrea about it, but she seemed a bit uninterested. I mentioned that this could lead to a job advancement if I do well. She just nodded and kept typing on her laptop. I felt like she wasn't really listening. After dinner, while heading to my daughter's basketball practice, I told them that I might be away for work sometimes. You all need to help Mom a bit more on those nights. Please make sure to tidy up the kitchen and finish your homework, and don't stay up past your usual bedtime. They all chuckled a little. I know my kids are responsible and will step up. My oldest, Diane, who is now 12 and very wise for her age, looked at me thoughtfully. Dad, does this mean Mom will need babysitters for us? I paused. I guess she might have to sometimes because of her work, but I hope it doesn't happen too often. Diane's response hit me. Well, we don't see her much already. Her words struck a chord with me. She noticed they don't spend enough time with their mom. It wasn't just about her busy Thursday afternoons. It was her full commitment to her real estate business that seemed to come first. I felt like I needed to find a good way to talk to Andrea about this situation. When I spoke to Andrea as I expected, she said my job would be a great opportunity for me. She said she would manage things with the kids. Still, she looked at me in a way that felt a little harsh. Do you think I can't take care of my own children? I'm not saying that. I was a bit annoyed by her tone. What I mean is that you may need to spend a bit more time with the kids on the nights I'm away. It'll let you know my plans in advance and we can figure out what help we might need. I continued. I know your schedule can be a bit all over the place, but there might be times when you'll need to change or delay some things. Andrea just nodded and got back to her cell phone, ending our talk. Week 68. John, I have some important updates. I'm getting deep into my new project, and while it's challenging, I believe I can manage it well if I focus on the engineering and technology aspects. I met with my bank representative to discuss our usual matters. I'm working on paying down our mortgage faster to save on interest costs. Leanne mentioned that our other account is doing well and has a good balance. I wasn't sure which account she meant. I thought it was the investment account I started 3 years ago where I put some money in every month. But she looked at me oddly and clarified it was the account for our bonus checks. I was trying hard to understand what she meant. She reminded me that this was the account where Andrea made deposits. Not often, and never the same amount, but over 3 years it had grown to over $180,000. Suddenly it struck me. I realized that Andrea was hiding this from me. The long hours she worked were just to cover the fact that some of her earnings were being put into a secret account. Leanne was at her computer when her eyes widened. She saw that my name was not listed on the account and realized she had broken a banking rule about privacy. She looked worried. Quickly, she changed the subject and told me the bank could lower my mortgage rate by 0.5 percentage point because they valued me as a client. I understood the silent agreement. Don't mention Leanne's mistake and I could save some money. That was fine with me. I'm back into biking season and enjoying it even more. I decided to treat myself to a new high-tech bike. It's a red Trek Pro Caliber, lighter than my old one, ready for both trails and roads. It will help me enjoy my rides even more. I've been exercising to boost my stamina and am now running up to 10 miles a day. I get up at 5 a.m. to run, shower, and then get to work after dropping the girls at school. I also traded in my old Subaru for a new one that is better for off-road driving. It has strong tires, black wheels, and a dark green color, along with other great features. Jane and Judy are biking again this season. Judy recently broke up with her boyfriend, who moved to another part of California for work and a new relationship. She seems to be doing well and appears happy. Jane is a different story. We are still friends and enjoy our time together, but I can sense subtle changes in her. Andrea is going through changes too, but in a different way. I'm no expert on feelings, but the past year has taught me to pay more attention to people. As an engineer, I know we often struggle with understanding emotions. We're good with machines, but reading people is a different challenge. In the past, I might not have noticed when something was wrong with Andrea until it was obvious. Now, I'm becoming more aware. I first noticed that Jane was starting to be much more open with me. It wasn't just about our friendship. It was about the growing closeness typical of good relationships. She started calling me dear more often instead of just my name. She remembered what I liked to eat, and if we went to a cafe or restaurant, she often guessed my order. She knew I liked Diet Cola and sometimes enjoyed a beer, usually an IPA. She even knew my weight and clothing sizes, showing how well she understood my tastes in music. I saw that Jane often talked about others and their families. One weekend, when I was with my daughters, we went to the RV show. Jane asked to join us, and we had a great time exploring the campers, letting her meet my daughters. Afterward, we went to a fast food place where the girls asked her lots of questions. I told them how Jane and I met at a biking club and shared how impressive her biking skills were, noting that she was faster than their dad. They laughed at that. My oldest daughter, Diane, joked about how their mother would never ride a mountain bike on muddy paths, which made Jane smile a little. On the way home, Diane said Jane seemed like a nice person. I had mentioned before that I felt Andrea was changing in small ways. She was spending more time at work and taking on new clients, even when she didn't have time. She hired an assistant to help with the paperwork, which let her meet more people and show properties. Sadly, she spent less time with me and the girls. She often worked late and on weekends, and we hardly connected anymore. Dinner with us became rare. She would come home late, shower, get a drink, and then work on her laptop. I tried talking to her a few times, but she always seemed too busy with her phone or computer. To see if she was paying attention, I mentioned that I had booked a 3-week vacation for us in Europe this summer. She just nodded and said, "That's nice." That told me it was time to do something. I needed Roy and his help again. I took out the agreement Andrea and I had signed about a year ago. Looking at it now, it felt silly. How can you really plan a marriage? I had loved Andrea when we married, and my feelings grew stronger with the birth of our daughters. I thought I had it all: a happy family and a good job. We were living a wonderful life, and our future looked bright. So, what went wrong? Did I take Andrea for granted? Did I neglect her? Had I failed as a husband? Did I get my priorities mixed up? Why had everything become so difficult? The hardest part was that Andrea didn't seem interested in discussing our marriage. When she did talk about it, she brushed off my worries, telling me she loved me and the kids, and everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. If it were, we wouldn't have these unspoken problems. I decided to talk to Roy. He would know what I could do. I brought the agreement with me when I went to Roy's office. He welcomed me with his usual serious look and a firm handshake. "So, how are you, John?" he asked. I sat down and replied, "Where do I start? I've been worse, but I've also been better." The last time we spoke was over a year ago when Andrea and I made that agreement. I showed him the paper, and he nodded, holding up his own copy. Things haven't really changed much since then. Andrea still spends time with someone else once a week, and I've been seeing a wonderful woman who has become a good friend. Roy listened and replied, "I see." But I wondered if he really understood. Things have gotten complicated. Andrea feels more distant and busy. It's hard to talk to her at home. She's working more hours than ever, and a few weeks ago I found out she had a secret savings account with over $250,000 in it. What does this mean? I already had an idea of the answer, but I wanted confirmation from someone with more experience. "Well, John, all this does sound concerning," Roy said. "I think we should bring in someone who can help answer your questions. I have a very skilled investigator who can assist you in getting the information you need to make your decision." With that, he reached for his phone and buzzed his assistant to call Bob. A few minutes later, the phone buzzed again, and Roy answered, talking about some surveillance work with his colleague Bob. After a few confirmations, Roy turned to me and said, "He'll be here in about 10 minutes. When Bob arrived, we introduced ourselves, and he shared details about his work. He mentioned his experience with Roy and other lawyers over the years. He also explained the costs of the information I needed. I wanted to know what Andrea was doing, especially regarding her activities and a secret bank account. Bob took careful notes, showing that he was making a plan. He assured me that he could find out everything I wanted to know. He had the ability to gather information that many think is private. I felt an urgent need to understand my wife's actions. At the same time, I realized she might be curious about what I knew and what I planned to do. This situation was getting more complicated by the day. I wrote a check to Bob as a retainer, and after a friendly conversation, I left to think about my next steps. 2 very difficult weeks passed, and finally Roy called to tell me that Bob had a report for me. We set a time for the next day to discuss the information he had found. I felt anxious all night, unable to focus. My daughters reminded me repeatedly that they needed help with their homework. I nodded and tried my best to be present for them. Andrea wasn't home, as usual. The next day, I hurried to Roy's office to learn what Bob had to share. After greetings, we got straight to the meeting's purpose. "John, I have been busy with your request from our last meeting," Bob said. "I need to tell you that your wife is quite active. Here are the key points. She is spending time with 2 different men. She meets each of them once or twice a week, usually spending a couple of hours with them at the same address." He continued, "I found out through public records that she owns a condo in a residential building near her office. She bought it almost 2 years ago and is nearly finished paying for it. She has a bank account at the bank you mentioned, with a current balance of $321,000. She has been depositing a large part of her commissions from her work as a real estate agent. She has made big sales recently, primarily commercial deals, and she is the top agent at her company. They offered her a partnership, but she turned it down for reasons we can't understand. Bob took a sip of water before continuing. I have the names and backgrounds of the two men she is seeing. One is married with a family and the other is single. I have a feeling that your wife is planning a significant change in the next few months. While I don't have exact details on her plans, it looks like she is preparing for something. The hidden condo and money suggest she is planning for a major change. When she will tell you about it is unclear. It could be soon, in a few months or years, or possibly never. Bob handed me a folder with his report and all the information he gathered. Roy said, "Good work, Bob. If we need anything else, I'll call you." With that, Bob walked away. I sat there shocked that Andrea was involved with two men. What should I do, Roy? I looked at him, feeling like my life was uncertain. Roy looked thoughtful, likely preparing for divorce paperwork. We discussed it and agreed that divorce might be coming, but I wasn't ready to make that choice. My 3 daughters were my priority, and I wanted to make sure I could keep full custody if we separated. That was important to me. Roy took a deep breath and offered his advice. "John, what do you want to do? That was all? You have a lot on your mind. I suggest taking a few days to think this over. There's no hurry. If Andrea makes a big move, we can file the divorce papers quickly. I know what you want, and the documents are ready. Just call me, and we'll move forward." Roy smiled slightly as he finished. I nodded, thanked him, and left his office. I indeed had a lot to think about. For the next 3 days, it occupied my mind. While I pondered my situation, I watched Andrea closely to see if she was acting differently. She still greeted me warmly and took care of our daughters just as always. I couldn't find anything that explained why she had bought a secret condo downtown. I thought she might want it as a private escape, a place to keep her activities private. We still had our agreement. We hadn't talked about it in a while, but it seemed to mean she could look for connections outside of our relationship. I had agreed to it, which meant I could do the same. So, where did that leave us? Week 83, Jane. This is different. A couple of months ago, I stopped taking my birth control pills because I decided I wanted a child. I hope to find a supportive partner to be with that child, but for now, my focus is just on the baby. I believe that the partner part will come later when things settle down. I'm not naive, and I have legal resources available to me. I also have colleagues who can support me when needed. One resource informed me that John had contacted a divorce lawyer a while ago and made some early plans about potentially separating from his wife, Andrea. I made some discreet inquiries about Andrea and soon learned that she had bought a place downtown, not far from her work. She paid cash for it, which suggested she was saving money secretly. This implied intentions that didn't quite match her current situation. I also knew that John was going to be the father of my child. He understands my desire for a family, and that I want him to be an important part of that. I picture a future with him, sharing our lives together. I don't want to have to share him with another woman, especially one who wants more than one partner for her needs. I find it hard to understand why that would be necessary. John is a caring father to his children, and he has qualities I admire. He knows how to be loving and gentle. I appreciate him deeply. He's smart, talented, and truly loves children. We share a strong connection. Week 85, Andrea. Why can't John just accept that I need more than he can give? I want to keep being a good wife and mother, but I feel a gap inside that one person can't fill. I struggle to explain this need. It's a wish that I must fulfill to feel happy. If I can't meet this wish, everything feels off in my world. When my needs are met, I do much better. I make quick decisions and am earning good money. The small place I bought downtown was meant to help me feel safer while I explore my interests with Rob and Tom. I should mention that Tom is someone I have come to enjoy spending time with. He is a new real estate agent in our company who just moved here. I've been allowing him to stay at my downtown place until he finds his own. John and the girls don't notice any changes in me. I'm still their wife and mother. I love John, and I know he loves me too. So what if I find joy in a way that doesn't affect my family? John and I have agreed on this. We discussed everything and worked it out. I have my fun and he has his. I'm not sure if he is seeing anyone. With our busy lives, we hardly talk each week. If he is, that's good for both of us. We each have our own interests, but stay focused on our daughters. One day, I may choose a more traditional relationship, and I believe we will find our way back to just being with each other. John understands, I think. Week 92. Jane. The last few mornings, I didn't feel well. I normally love my morning coffee, but it hasn't been sitting right lately. I knew what that meant. So I stopped at my local pharmacy on the way home and picked up a test kit. It would confirm my suspicions. I called John to let him know I was going to take the test and wanted him to come over. He showed up after dinner, surprisingly with his 3 daughters. It felt right that his children should be there during this important moment for our family. I knew his daughters well, having spent time together over the past year. His oldest daughter, Diane, was very mature for her age. She had a sharp mind and understood family changes were coming. After the girls got settled in the kitchen, I took John by the hand and we went to the bathroom off my bedroom. I took out the test kit and said, "Okay, the moment of truth." We looked at each other and I sat down to do the test. After washing my hands, I took the test and handed it to John. "Well, what does it say?" John looked at it for a few seconds and then said, "It says that you and I are going to be parents." "Congratulations, Mom." John, Jane, and I went to see her doctor, and she confirmed that she was pregnant. She calculated it to be about 6 weeks along. This was a sign for me to get my life in order and prepare for what was ahead. It was a long-awaited moment, but now it felt important. Week 94, John Bob, the investigator, updated me on what Andrea was doing with her relationships. There wasn't any real change in her behavior. It was time for me to take action. I knew where her condo was and had gathered information on how to enter the building quietly. She had underground parking, and you needed key fobs for the building and garage. I chose to be straightforward instead of sneaky. I went to the building and waited until I saw her drive in, giving her a moment to park and go up to her unit. I walked up to the entrance and looked through the directory until I found her name, A. Layton. She was using her maiden name. I called the number and waited. After a few minutes, a man answered. "Hello? I'm looking for Andrea Stewart. No one here by that name. What about Andrea Layton?" "Ah, just tell her it's her husband. I'm John Stewart, the father of her 3 daughters. My frustration started to grow, and I had to remind myself to stay calm. I could hear whispering in the background. Then someone exclaimed, "Just put her on the phone!" After a short wait, Andrea spoke. "John, what are you doing here?" "Never mind that, Andrea. Just unlock the door so I can come up and we can talk." After a moment, the door buzzed open. I took the elevator to her floor and looked for her unit. I knocked on the door and heard some muffled voices inside, so I knew they were preparing for our talk. Finally, the door opened, and a young man with big eyes looked at me nervously. "Don't worry, I'm not here to cause any trouble. I just want to talk to my wife, and it might be best if you step out for a bit. I'm sure she will call you when you can come back." The man glanced at Andrea, who nodded. "It's okay, Tom. Go get some coffee. I'll call you." He left, looking uncertain. I walked in and glanced around the living room. After a moment, I said, "Nice place." Andrea looked at me with guilt on her face. "Do you have something to drink?" I asked. She nodded. "Why don't you pour yourself something? I'd like a glass of ice water, please." She stared at my left hand, where I was holding a large envelope. Our future was inside that envelope. I took off my suit jacket and draped it over a chair as I sat down. Andrea went to the kitchen to get her drink, and I could hear ice going into a glass and water running. She returned and handed me the glass of water. "Why did you come here? This isn't going to help," she said. I looked at her, my intent clear. "You know why I'm here. You can't think you can have a family with me while being with others without consequences. You're not that naive," she said, taking a sip of her drink. I met her gaze. She looked uncomfortable and avoided eye contact for a while. The silence felt heavy. Finally, she asked, "What's in the envelope?" I maintained a serious expression, hoping she could see my disappointment. "I'm really let down. I thought you would want a better life. I accepted your decision to see someone else, believing you would choose to come back to us. But that hasn't happened. You've made it clear that I'm not the partner you want, and our family life isn't what you desire." Andrea responded quickly, "No, that's not it." "Come on, you know that isn't true," I replied, my frustration growing. "If that's not the case, then what does this really mean for us? Please explain." Andrea looked down at her hands. And then I found out that you have a secret bank account. Her head shot up in surprise. How did you find out about that? She stammered. I have friends at the bank, I said. It was just savings for our retirement and for the girls' education, she replied, her voice shaky. I looked at her with doubt, showing that I didn't believe her. Come on, be honest with me. You wanted to keep money hidden from me. It feels like you've been living a different life, and it seems like you might want to leave your family. We hardly see you at home anymore. You come and go at odd hours, and the girls hardly see you anymore. They've been asking where you've been. The look on Andrea's face said it all. She knew I had discovered her actions. She understood that her choices were catching up to her. Realizing her plan was falling apart, she decided to stop pretending. Taking a moment, she asked, What do you want to do, John? I slid the envelope I was holding across the table to her. Take a look. Andrea stared at it for a long time before slowly picking it up. She opened it, and the first page was our relationship agreement from last year. I had marked it with void in black. She set that aside and looked at the next paper. Petition for divorce. Andrea sat back, taking a large sip of her wine, looking stunned as if she couldn't believe this was real. After examining the top page, she sighed. I quietly said, I've had my lawyer create a solution that works well for both of us. I paused and added, It's clear to me what your intentions are. I waited to see how Andrea would respond, but she stayed silent. I continued, The girls and I will stay in the house. I want to make sure they are as little affected by this as possible. I sighed deeply, waiting for a response, but there was only silence. We sat at the table for a few minutes before I finally spoke up. Please say something. What's going on in your mind? Why are you doing this? I know you don't love me anymore, but please think about the children. You must care about them. I was pleading for her to share her thoughts. I needed to know what I had done to push her away. What had I failed to do as a husband? She finally spoke without looking at me. I won't agree to a divorce. I still want you and the kids. We're still a family. I just need some space for a little while. This isn't about you and me. I laughed lightly. Really? You think you can stay here and pretend we still have a marriage? When was the last time we actually spent time together? Andrea hesitated before saying, It was just a few weeks ago. I frowned. No, it wasn't. It was months ago. In fact, it was 8 months ago. That's how little you're around your family. When was the last time you had a meaningful moment with Tom? I waited for her to answer, but there was silence. I have a feeling you were already involved with someone else when I came to visit you. Did you have to prepare before letting me in? Still no reply. So don't tell me you love me and want to keep your family as your priority. Your actions show clearly that we're not your priority. I took a big gulp of water. So, have your lawyer go over the divorce agreement and talk to my lawyer. His card is in the envelope. I stood up to leave. I won't say anything to your parents, so you can tell them whatever you want. Just don't make me look like the bad guy, because I will make sure they know the truth. I moved towards the door. You have a week for your lawyer to speak with mine before we file with the court. I opened the door to leave. You can let your friend know he can come back now. I closed the door behind me and headed home to my daughters. Andrea, I don't know how John found out about the condo and my secret bank account. I've been saving money there since I returned to work after having our third daughter. I added most of my earnings to it, and before long, I had over $400,000 saved. I planned to buy the condo as an investment, but when I started spending Thursday afternoons with Rob, we began meeting at the condo. There wasn't much furniture at first, but over time I bought some pieces to make it nicer. When Tom needed a place to stay, I let him live there. I thought it would be just for a few weeks, but now it has been a few months, and he's still there. John surprised me when he showed up with the divorce papers. He wasn't supposed to know about this place. I had my lawyer look at the divorce agreement, and she was shocked that John wanted full custody of the girls. Usually in this state, mothers get custody. She would try to address that and propose a deal that could greatly affect John's finances, considering the house, the mortgage, child support, and alimony. I didn't mention my condo or other financial resources. I also downplayed my income by only providing my official tax returns. I knew that if the firm had to share their records, it could complicate things for me. The lawyers were setting up a first meeting to begin the process and discussions. My main goal was to get the divorce dropped completely. I wanted to stay with my husband and my daughters. I wanted my life to stay the same. My lawyer asked me when I last saw my children. I hesitated, trying to answer. She realized I was trying to avoid the topic of divorce and suggested that I be ready to find some common ground with John. I haven't seen or talked to Andrea for weeks now. The girls have stopped asking about their mother. I decided it was time to start clearing out Andrea's things and reminders of her from the house. I cleaned out her closet, boxing everything up and taking down her pictures from the walls, including our family photos. I placed our wedding album in one of the boxes with her clothes. One evening at dinner, I had a heart-to-heart talk with the girls about their mother. I tried my best to make it as gentle as possible to explain that I didn't think she would be coming back home. They wanted to know if their mom still loved them. I told them that she did, but that she was dealing with some personal challenges that she had to work through to be the mother she wanted to be. I know I wasn't fully honest with them, but I wanted to protect them from the tough truth. The truth wouldn't help them. They were just kids. They were sad, and some tears were shed. Diane quietly talked to me afterward and said she understood that their mother had left us and probably wasn't coming back. Dad, we're here to help you too. We three talked, and we think that Mom doesn't want to be with us. If she wanted to be, she would be here. But she hasn't been home for a long time, and that shows she doesn't want to be our mom anymore. We also know you like your friend Jane. Could she be our new mom? I was surprised by how mature my oldest daughter was. She understood what was happening, even if she didn't know all the details. Would you be upset if I asked Jane to live with us? I asked. Diane looked at me and smiled. Does she make you happy, Dad? I could see the wisdom in my daughter's eyes, and I nodded. Then I guess we know what you want to do. You just need to do it. She hopped off the stool at the kitchen island and went to her room where her younger sisters were waiting. Later, the father of my baby called to say he was coming over. When he arrived, he brought a bouquet of flowers and a pint of my favorite ice cream. He always knows how to make me smile. I put the flowers in a vase and enjoyed the ice cream while John looked at me with a grin. Want to share some ice cream? He asked. I smiled back. Get your own spoon. He took a spoonful of the chocolate treat and asked, Have you thought about our baby and what we will do when the baby arrives? We had talked about some of the details before, and I made it clear that since I had chosen to get pregnant, caring for the child would be my responsibility. I'm independent and have my own resources. Plus, John had his own kids to think about. I have a plan, I said. This baby was my idea, and I'll take care of him or her. I understand that, but as the father, I want to be part of that plan if you will let me, he said. Of course I'll let you. You don't need an invitation. Great. I have a plan, too. Get your coat and come with me. Curious, I watched as he took the ice cream from my hand, put it in the freezer, placed the spoons in the sink, and headed for the door. Come on. We got in his car and drove to his house. I had visited before and met his daughters, but this time felt different. Why the mystery? I asked. You'll find out soon enough, he replied. When we arrived, his 3 daughters stood on the front step, dressed neatly. They greeted me and opened the door. What was going on? We walked into the kitchen, where a nice spread was prepared. Cold cuts, bread, cheese, and coleslaw. There were drinks in an ice bucket. The girls looked at me with excitement, hinting that something special was happening. They helped prepare sandwiches, and we sat at the kitchen island. I had a lot of questions, but started with, So, girls, this is lovely. What's the occasion? Diane, the oldest, spoke for them. We just wanted to make you feel welcome. Dad told us you're going to have a baby in a few months. Thank you. Yes, the baby is due in about 6 months. It'll start showing soon, I said. The girls stared at my stomach, curious about whether the baby would be a boy or a girl. It was funny to watch them. John cleared his throat. I invited you here because I have a question for you. You don't have to answer today or even soon. My curiosity was growing. He continued, The girls and I have talked a lot, and I would like you, if you want to come live with us. We want you to move in here. My heart raced at the sudden offer. I needed a moment to take it all in. Ah. Before I could say anything, he added, Take your time to think it over. There's no hurry. We have some work to do before you would move in. Some decorating and a few pieces of furniture had to be removed, and some painting needed to be done. John walked toward the main bedroom as he spoke. He opened the door and went inside. I followed him. The room was completely empty. The walk-in closet was open, and I could see it was also bare. The bathroom looked the same. It was clear Andrea was gone, not just from their lives, but from their home. The divorce was happening. John moved around the empty room. I packed all her things about a month ago and sent everything to her new place. I got rid of the bedroom furniture and donated it. Where are you sleeping? I asked, surprised. In the spare room. The bed is big enough for now. I have painters coming in this week and need help choosing new furniture for this room. Would you like to help me? Week 104, 2 years. John Roy called me today and asked me to come by his office whenever I could. That's rare for a lawyer, so I drove there as fast as I could. I didn't know if it was good news or bad news, but right now, any news was welcome. I wanted the divorce from Andrea to be done soon. My girls and I had already started to separate ourselves emotionally, and now all I wanted was the court to finalize everything. I had things to do. When I arrived at his office, I was taken right in. His secretary handed me a bottle of water as I sat down. Roy had a big smile on his face. I hoped it was good news. Well, John, I'm happy to say the talks with Andrea's lawyer have gone well. She has agreed to most of the things I proposed, and I expect she will sign the agreement in the next couple of days. Please tell me more, Roy. What about my girls? He cleared his throat before continuing. She has agreed that you will have full custody of the girls. It felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I had what I wanted. The rest were just details. You will keep the house and everything in it. You will also keep the family bank accounts and your investment account. Andrea will pay $100,000 for the girls' education. She will give up any claim to your shared property. You won't have to give her anything. I didn't hear much after he said I would have custody of the girls. I took a big sip of water. Part of me was happy with the news, and part of me felt sad that my marriage had ended like this. I realized that I hadn't met her expectations, but I knew she would never be satisfied with just one partner. I understood that this divorce was meant to be. I looked at Roy and thanked him. I figured his bill would be high, but in the end it would be worth it. When will everything be official? When can I start over? In about 2 weeks. I have a judge friend who can speed up the process for us. Do we all need to go to court? No, the lawyers will handle everything. Congratulations, John. You must be very happy with this outcome. Thank you, Roy. Was I happy with the outcome? I wasn't so sure. How could I be happy knowing that my life was about to change so much? My wife, who I thought was faithful, had been hiding her true feelings from me while we raised our 3 daughters together. That shocked me. The more surprising part was that against the odds I had started to move on. I gained custody of my girls and began a new relationship that felt promising. I found myself falling in love with a wonderful woman who was expecting a baby. I was ready for a fresh start. My lawyer called to tell me she had negotiated a deal with John's lawyer. I learned that, considering everything, I had gotten off fairly easy. It seemed John's lawyer had a lot of personal information about me and was ready to share it in court. My lawyer accepted many of John's terms and explained that I was lucky to settle on those conditions. She promised to send the paperwork for me to sign the next day. I did that right away. A courier brought me an envelope from my lawyer with a copy of the final divorce decree. It was official. I was no longer married to John. Because I had agreed to give him full custody of the girls, I felt like I was no longer their mother. A few days earlier, I drove past our old home hoping to see my family, but I noticed an unfamiliar car parked there. I slowed down, but I didn't see anyone and continued on. In that moment, I realized I had made serious mistakes. My wishes had blurred my vision, making me overlook the important things in my life, like my family. Peter said, "All right, sister, now dip your pinky finger in the holy water and you may enter," and she did as told. St. Peter then asked the second nun, "Sister, have you ever touched a man?" Well, once I held a hand for a moment. "All right, sister, just wash your hands in the holy water, and you may enter." She did. Then I heard some commotion in the line. One nun was trying to go ahead of the others. St. Peter noticed and asked, "Sister Susan, What is happening? There is no rush. Sister Susan replied, "If I have to use this stuff, I'd like to do it before Sister Mary gets to it." On their way home from a girls' night out, two women passed a graveyard and stopped. One woman had nothing to use, so she improvised. Her friend found a ribbon from a wreath and used that instead. The next day, the first woman's husband called the second woman's husband, worried, "My wife came home without her underwear." "That's nothing," the other man said. "Mine came back with a card stuck that said, 'From all of us at the fire station, we'll always remember you.'"